In this guide, we'll be going over how to perform the cafeteria teleport on the Maw. A separate guide will cover the platforming before and after the teleport. I'll link that video in the description when it's available. First, let's cover the required setup for the trick. The setups used in this guide require that mouse acceleration and smoothing are disabled. For this guide, we'll be using a sensitivity of 3.1. Keep in mind that there are some sensitivities that will never produce a desirable teleport regardless of your lineup. The sensitivities shown here have been tested to produce working teleports with various success. Field of view will also affect the visual lineups for the teleport, however it does not affect the outcome. We will be using an FOV of 90 for the lineup shown in this tutorial. If you decide to use a different sensitivity or FOV than this guide, your visual lineups will need to be adjusted. Before we go into the teleport itself, let's first talk about why sensitivity matters so much. When moving your camera with a mouse, it will only rotate in small chunks based on your in-game sensitivity. At lower sensitivities, the increments are so small that it can be hard to tell that it is not one smooth motion. Here's an example of an in-game sensitivity of 100. You can see that the camera appears to snap to certain angles. A consequence of this angle snapping is when you fully rotate your character one rotation. You may not be able to land on the same angle that you started out with. In this next example, we'll be using an exaggerated sensitivity of 250. Starting out, we can see that the reticle lines up with the texture above. After turning around a full rotation, it is no longer possible to achieve the same rotation that we started out with. This behavior applies to all sensitivities and angles that you may want to achieve. Another thing to mention is that adjusting your mouse DPI does not affect the lineup for the teleport. Changing your DPI only affects how fast or slow you transition between the rotation angles. It doesn't change what angles you'll land on. Let's move on to getting into position for the teleport. There are three main ways to get into position for the teleport. The first two use the Hunter door bump, the last uses the extended platforming route. The full extended platforming route will be covered in a separate video. To bump with the Hunter door, take a tight line towards the door that busts open and crouch in the corner while letting go of W. If you continue holding W in the corner, you'll fall underneath the map instead of being bumped upwards. From here we have two options. The first is to jump directly into the teleport position from the Hunter door. Make sure not to hold W for the entire duration of the jump. Instead, feather the W key towards the beginning and end. You don't want to have too much forward momentum or you'll bounce backwards off of the bulkhead. The second option is to jump on this beam parallel to the door. From here you can simply walk forwards towards the bulkhead and into position. There's a divot to the right of the beam that you should avoid. Going forwards from here will bounce you back into the level. The last option is only viable if you're doing the extended platforming route. From the center beam, jump slightly to the right of the wall corner. You should land on a light that is slightly out from the wall. From here, walk directly towards the bulkhead to get into position. After using one of these methods and you're on the bulkhead, there's a specific spot you want to get Master Chief into. Turn your camera about 45 degrees to the right and walk towards the bulkhead. Don't turn too far right or you'll walk off into the level. If you're in the right spot, your camera shouldn't vibrate or move while you're walking forwards. Let go of W. Your camera should settle as you stop moving. Now let's move on to performing the teleport. Correctly performing the teleport depends on three things: your position, your lineup, and input execution. Now that we're in position, let's go over lining up. This is why I spent so much time talking about sensitivity and angles in the beginning of the video. This is where it matters. There are many visual lineups you can use. I'll just be showing you the ones that I'm comfortable with. Remember that you may need to make your own lineup if you're playing with a different sensitivity, FOV, or resolution than I am. I will be focusing this video on the long teleport, which puts you on the door beyond the cafeteria. There's a shorter teleport that will take you to the end of the cafeteria, however this is slower in a speedrun, so I won't talk about it too much. You'll sometimes get the short teleport if your lineup is incorrect. The lineup I use for the long teleport is shown here. Place the top of the AR reticle to the right of the thick dark smudge on the bulkhead. You can line up your reticle anywhere up or down vertically from here, however you must maintain this exact horizontal position. Here's an example of the long teleport with the correct lineup. If you teleport into the void, your lineup was too far right. If you teleport into the space between the cafeteria and armory, your lineup was too far left. If you're getting a teleport at all, that means you're doing your inputs correctly at least. Let's go over those now. Keep an eye on the input view at the bottom left. When you're in position and lined up, jump and then start holding forward one tick later. A tick is 1/30th of a second. Keep holding forward until after you've landed on the door. This part just comes down to muscle memory. Keep practicing and you'll get it eventually. If you slide off of the front of the bulkhead, this usually means you started holding W too early. If you bounce off the top of the bulkhead, this is a sign that you're starting to hold W too late. The window for these inputs is very small. It takes a lot of practice to do consistently. Putting all these things together, here's what a proper setup and teleport would look like in a run. Thanks for watching. Good luck on your Moss speedruns.